What's up guys, manic.mercurian here, and today we're going to be analyzing the hardest Venus signs. So this does definitely apply mostly to how we approach relationships and romance. That's all that, Venus is kind of about. But Venus also has to do with how we approach attraction in general and how we are attractive. So it's attraction, desire, pleasure, both ways. How we are those things as well as how we attract what we view to be those things, if that makes sense. So this is going to be kind of interesting. And okay, this is kind of sad, but I finally figured out how to fit all 12 signs like below here so they're not overlapping the freaking tier. And I just wanted to give a sincere thanks to all of you because, let's face it, my channel's a little ghetto. I feel like I have good information, but you guys, you put up with some technical, some technical stuff that's not necessarily super professional. And I just wanted to give a sincere thanks to you guys, before I continue here. But anyway, let's continue on. And in my last video, I went, kind of in the normal order, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, etc. Let's kind of mix it up. Should I just choose them randomly, or how should we assess the Venus signs? Oh, in case you're new, let's clarify what I'm doing here. So I'm assessing what is the hardest Venus sign. So like we're talking natally, if you have Venus in blank, Venus in Taurus, Venus in Sagittarius, whatever, how difficult is it for you to have that placement? We're also talking about like transits as well. So when Venus is in blank sign, Gemini, Pisces, whatever, how hard is that for all of us in general? Okay. So let's start out with, gosh, I'm having a hard time choosing. Let's start out with Gemini. Okay, yeah, this is kind of interesting. So Venus and Gemini is kind of interesting. So, Venus, again, is kind of the romance, the desire, the attraction. And Gemini is this kind of brainy, intellectual sign, very neurotic, very intellectual. Like, it's very focused on information, and it constantly wants new things. So I don't know, maybe I'll just disperse like a little bit of information about each Venus sign. I guess that's kind of inevitable, but people with Venus and Gemini, they're going to want someone really interesting, someone kind of unique, and someone knowledgeable. Okay. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, is this a hard placement or not? I think the easy part is that someone with Venus and Gemini isn't going to be bogged down necessarily by really heavy emotions that come with attraction that you might find in, say, I don't know, like a water Venus sign. Venus and Gemini likes to keep things kind of light and detached, easy, playful. So that's going to be super easy. The difficulty comes in Gemini's mutability. It's mutable air. So Gemini Venus doesn't always know exactly what it wants. It's kind of fickle. It's here and it's there. It can't make up its mind. And although that detachedness makes things really easy, it can also make things hard because Venus and Gemini may not always know what it exactly feels. So there's a lot going against Venus and Gemini. There's a lot going for it. We're going to put Venus and Gemini in the neutral category. All right, and I guess I'm just choosing these randomly. Let's do Venus and Scorpio next. So Venus and Scorpio is a really interesting one. Venus and Scorpio is in detriment. So this, right off the bat, any placement that's in detriment is by default challenging. Venus in Scorpio is not always well understood. Someone who has Venus in Scorpio approaches love, attraction, desire in a way that is unique and unusual, kind of obscure. What they find attractive may be obscure in itself, and also the way they are attractive is obscure as well. So that right off the bat is going to be confusing for other people. They're not going to be well understood. They're going to be a little bit counterculture. Also, Venus in Scorpio is very difficult because with Venus and Scorpio comes such intense emotion. It's very difficult. There's so much emotional vulnerability. And from that emotional vulnerability, there's a tendency for, a lot of sort of unhealthy ways to cope with that insecurity that comes from the emotional vulnerability. I'm not even going to go super in depth into all of that. I've made a video on Venus and Scorpio that you can check out if you want to. But yeah, Venus and Scorpio, it's a tough one. It can be definitely exhilarating to experience the deep pleasure and attraction that can only be found with Venus and Scorpio. But there's a lot of challenges that come with that as well. Okay, let's just continue choosing these at random. Venus in Sagittarius. Okay, this one's kind of interesting too. I mean, on the plus side, I guess let's go off Venus in Scorpio. We just talked about that. So, like Venus in Scorpio, Venus in Sagittarius is very passionate. They're going to know, if they're attracted to somebody, they're going to know it right away. So, at least there's a little bit of clarity there with that passion, that deep feeling. But Venus in Sagittarius is intellectual, it's mutable, so it doesn't always know what it wants either, a little bit like Gemini. I think Sagittarius is a very kind of romantic, like grandiose sign. So Venus in Venus in Sagittarius, Sagittarius. Venus in Sagittarius is going to be kind of larger than life. It's going to want, the fairy tale sunset and the boy meets girl or whatever type of story, the fairy tale story, whatever that is for you, that's what they're going to want. So yeah, that is really great and beautiful, but with any Sagittarius placement, there's this theme of high expectations lead to disappointment, and then kind of soul-crushing disappointment, but usually it's short-tempered, and then they get back on their feet. So anyway, kind of like Gemini, there's a lot going for this, there's a lot going against it. I kind of just rambled for that one, I'm sorry. Sorry, not sorry. I'm going to put Venus and Sagittarius in the neutral category. And if you listen to my if you listen to my hardest Mercury video, you'll know what that sound just now was. Anyway, let's go forward. Let's take a step backward and go to Libra. Okay, so if you've watched my other videos, sometimes I'm kind of unique and I have my own, perceptions. At least I've been told that astrologically. But other times I feel like I'm kind of textbook, you know what I mean? Libra is the sign of domicile for Venus. Venus is in domicile in Libra. So this means lots of things. Right off the bat, to me, this means this is one of the easiest placements for Venus. This means that someone with Venus in Libra will be naturally understood. They'll be naturally accepted. Again, and we're talking about Venus. So what I mean by that, so they're naturally going to be accepted as being attractive and pleasant. Venus in Libra is composed. They consider the other person's point of view. They're very refined. So they're never one to come across too belligerent or too crude, or, they're not going to offend anybody. So, Venus loves this kind of like, Venus embodies this pleasant energy, and someone that has Venus in Libra is going to embody that. And of course, there may be exceptions. If you can think of an exception, I would actually love to hear that. If you want, leave it in the comments. If you can think of someone who's just a piece of work who has Venus in Libra, I'd love to hear that. Or on the contrary, if you can just think of like a really beautiful example of someone with Venus in Libra, I'd love to hear that as well. But of course, these are all generalizations. I would say, generally speaking, a Venus in Libra person is going to be very refined, beautiful. They're going to think about their appearance. This is exactly what Venus is all about: the beauty, the appearance, the aesthetic. Now, on the contrary, like Libra can be actually kind of detached and even kind of cynical sign. It can be so objective that it's sort of interesting how, someone who's experiencing Venus and Libra energy, they're not necessarily head over heels in love like someone who has, Venus in Sagittarius or Scorpio, for example, might be. They're more kind of detached. They hang back. They're not super, into their feelings necessarily. But I think this is an advantage. I think this makes it easier for someone experiencing this type of energy, because they can still have logic in how they approach this desire and attraction. They still keep, they keep one foot on the ground, so to speak. They have one foot up in the air, all in love with the aesthetic and the beauty of it, all the experience of it all. But they have one foot on the ground. They're still detached. They can think, realistically, logically. Libra is a logical sign. So Libra is about as easy as it gets for Venus. Okay, continuing to just pick at totally random. Let's go to Aries, the opposite sign here. So, Aries is the opposite sign of Libra, so this means Venus is in detriment in Aries. It was in domicile in Libra, so it's in detriment in Aries. So this means it's a hard placement, and I think this may be surprising for people who, if you only know someone who has Venus in Aries a little bit, you would be surprised, I think, because they seem so charming and outgoing, so confident, just like, most Aries placements. And especially when it comes to desire and attraction and love. Someone with Venus and Aries is going to love the hunt, the chase. So they're going to really come off as cool and attractive and, very powerful when we're looking at these kind of games, this dating or courtship process. So, so one might think, oh, Venus and Aries is such an easy placement, right? It looks so easy for them. But the challenge comes because this is not actually normal. Venus is our attraction. It likes to be stable. Aries is not stable at all. So in other words, someone who has Venus and Aries, they will never fully be, well, I should be careful of how I phrase this. It's difficult for them to be fully satisfied. They're going to need someone who's constantly changing, someone very dynamic for them to be satisfied. So all too often, someone with Venus and Aries is going to be constantly, enjoying the chase. They love the chase. And once they settle down with someone, they get bored. They get restless. They want something exciting. They want something new. And so they move on and start over again. And there can be this cycle that happens. So there is a struggle there. As easy as it may look from the outside, it can be definitely a struggle for someone who has Venus in Aries. So it is out of place. Aries is the warrior energy. It's the hunter. It's the the fighter, and Venus is supposed to be all about love and attraction. So it's out of place. It's at odds here, basically. Let's kind of move on here. Let's go to Cancer. So Cancer, I'm going to put in the hard category as well. My heart actually goes out to anyone who has Venus in Cancer. I know it's a very tough placement because let's first talk about a couple pros for Venus in Cancer. So someone with Venus in Cancer is going to be very committed. When they feel attraction, when they feel desire, they are committed. They're loyal. They're there. They're very emotionally nurturing as well. They want to give their everything. They want to pour everything into that person that they love, and God bless them for that. But the downside is they can be attracted to people who may not necessarily reciprocate that kind of affection and nurturing. And that's where, there's a lot of kind of manipulative or abusive even relationships that can happen when one is experiencing Venus and Cancer energy. I really hate to say it, but it's true. It's just such an emotional energy. Again, Cancer is the most emotional sign. And so Venus, which has to do with attraction, love, desire, pleasure, putting that in the most emotional sign, it's kind of like a tinderbox. It's a little prone to, certain kind of problematic situations. But again, Venus in Cancer makes an excellent lover. I think they have a challenge to use their intuition because they have great intuition. And they have some emotional wisdom, emotional intelligence. And from that, there's like this kind of common sense that comes with Cancer placements, I think, that is present in Venus and Cancer. But they need to use all that to make sure they're in the right situation because they have to prioritize how they, they're, like Venus and Cancer is going to put all their being into somebody. So basically, they have to make sure that person is worthy of that expression. So long story short, that in itself is a challenge for sure. Venus in Cancer is hard. Okay, let's go to Capricorn. Okay, so Venus in Capricorn is interesting, I think. Excuse me, let me kind of reposition myself. I'm sorry. Venus in Capricorn. This is probably the most committed placement I could even think of. Very loyal, very committed. And so that is admirable for sure. But when it comes to, how easy or challenging is this? I think it's easy in the sense that someone with Venus in Capricorn is going to be very practical in how they approach their attraction. They're going to want to make sure the person they're approaching, or excuse me, like the person they're attracted to they're going to want to make sure that they are worth their time, worth the investment. They're going to want to naturally kind of focus on the long term. So I think all of this is really advantageous, for how we are approaching that amount of attraction and desire. So that's really great. But the hardship is, really investing so much of your being into someone else, into what you're attracted to. That can be difficult. So anyway, this, placement, I think there's a lot going for it to make it easy. advantageous, but there's also a lot going for it to make it difficult as well. I'm gonna put it in neutral. Okay, let's see. Let's do Leo. So I almost wanted to put Leo in the too easy category, but I'm gonna put it in easy. Venus is in joy in the 5th house. Bear with me. I don't know if you've heard of that. If you haven't heard of the joys, the planetary joys, just Google planetary joys and you can find a lot of information about them. I haven't done a full video like going in depth on them. But Venus is in joy in the 5th house, and 5th house definitely doesn't equal Leo, but it does have parallels to Leo. And so this means Venus is kind of in joy in Leo. This is a very pleasurable, fun placement. Someone with Venus in Leo is going to know exactly who they're attracted to. The feeling is very black and white. You know, they know it for sure, and they're very confident about it. Leo is also very playful, and since Venus has to do with love and attraction and desire, having this energy in Leo, which is all about having fun, having a good time, it's very confident. This works super well. It's super easy. The only kind of challenge, or the only reason why I wouldn't put it in the too easy category, is because sometimes Leo can be very passionate or very headstrong. So someone with Venus and Leo, when they're feeling that kind of pleasure or love, they're going to be so outgoing, so confident that they really just put themselves out there so strongly that it can either scare people away or it can create dynamics that are confusing, I think, or not clear. Or a better way to phrase that would be, it can create dynamics that are short-lived, I think, because there's this kind of intense kind of explosion. I don't know if that makes sense at all. If you want me to clarify it, leave me a comment, and I'd be happy to do so. Okay, moving on. Let's do Venus in... let's do Venus in Taurus. So this is another kind of textbook, answer. Venus is in domicile in Taurus. This works super well. Taurus thrives with both the most feminine planets, Venus and the moon. And I think this isn't a coincidence. Venus thrives in Taurus because someone who has Venus in Taurus, they're gonna love the more physical pleasures. Taurus is such a physical sign. But also, Taurus is fixed Earth. So someone who has Venus in Taurus, they're going to be very consistent with how they approach their desires. So not only are they going to be kind of responsible and making sure their desires are able to be carried out in a long-term way, but they're also going to kind of indulge in the enjoyment of it in a more sustainable way as well. So there's this kind of sustained, very gradual, stable pleasure, enjoyment that comes from Venus in Taurus. And also when it comes to relationships, Taurus is a fixed sign, so it's very strong-willed. Someone with Venus in Taurus is not going to change for anybody. But Taurus is a yin sign. It is receptive. So someone with Venus in Taurus, they're strong-willed. They're not going to change for anybody, but they will be receptive to other people. There is this high amount of empathy there. So in a way, it's kind of perfect almost, Venus in Taurus. Okay, moving on. Let's do Venus in Aquarius. I'm going to put this in the hard category just because Aquarius is very detached. It's fixed air. So with Venus in Aquarius, they're going to want someone unique, someone interesting. That's fine. That's all good and dandy. But Aquarius is a sign that I think placements there, people who have placements in Aquarius feel very deeply, but they don't know how to process that feeling. They don't know how to express it. They're not totally sure about the feeling or what to do with it. It's kind of foreign. It's definitely there. Aquarius placements are deep feeling. It's just that they're sort of ambiguous, or not expressed. So I think that's the biggest challenge for someone with Venus in Aquarius. When they are really attracted to someone or something, they're not going to know what to do about it. How do I express this? What do I do with this feeling? So that's where it can stay on the inside, or it can stay kind of confused in a way. I wouldn't put this at the hardest placement though, because at least it's air, it's detached, so you don't have to, again, deal with super heavy emotion that, for example, Venus and Scorpio does. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. the heavy emotion can be exhilarating, but here we're talking about difficult or not difficult. We're talking about the hardest placements. So I do think, generally speaking, more detached Venus signs would be easier, if that makes sense, just because there's less emotion that has to be dealt with when one is experiencing attraction or pleasure. So Aquarius, I would rank as hard. Let's do Pisces now. Pisces is a weird one because I think so far with all the other, planetary signs that I've ranked, whenever a planet is exalted, I'm pretty sure I put that exalted sign in the too easy category. That kind of makes the most sense, right? Venus is exalted in Pisces, so like it is very strong there. Pisces embodies some of the highest qualities of Venus. Venus has to do with love, attraction, pleasure, desire, etc. And in Pisces, this is like the ultimate expression of desire and pleasure. Someone with Venus in Pisces is gonna fall in love with sort of everyone. Like they kind of just fit with everyone. They take everyone in. Everyone loves them. Someone with Venus in Pisces is gonna come across very attractive to everyone. There's this like ubiquitous or like applying to everyone attraction with Venus and Pisces. So this is like super strong, super powerful. This is exaltation. You'd think I would put it in the too easy category, but the reason why I'm not is because I've spoken to many people who have had Venus and Pisces, and they will tell you it is difficult, and I can see that for myself as well. Because how do you handle that level of attraction? There's no certainty when it comes to most Pisces placements, if not all Pisces placements. That's just not what it's about. I think it is difficult to manage all that. How do you manage feeling attracted to everyone or everyone being attracted to you? Yes, that can be really great. That's really powerful. It's really, strong Venus energy. But when it comes to being easy or hard, really that it can actually be very challenging. It can be very advantageous for sure. It can be very pleasurable, very fun. But at the end of the day, I think it's difficult for someone with Venus and Pisces to know how they feel or what to do with how they feel. Everything's constantly changing and shifting with Pisces. So this is another one of those signs where there's a lot going for it, there's a lot going against it. I'm going to put it in the neutral category. Okay, and then that just leaves Virgo, Venus in Virgo. So Venus is in fall in Virgo. It's opposite Pisces, of course. Some people don't understand this, I think, that I've spoken to. But the reason being is, kind of like with Scorpio, Virgo is a sign that feels like it's kind of like on a survival mentality, okay? And with Venus is all about love, attraction. Venus is typically just about, accept love, like, know the beauty in yourself and the attractiveness in yourself and just radiate that outward, and then passively you'll just attract what you love in return. Okay, that's like ideally how Venus works. You can see that with Libra or Taurus or Pisces. But with Virgo doesn't work that way at all. Virgo feels like it has to work for everything. It's on a survival mentality. It's a little bit nervous. It's constantly, working for things. Constantly has to fix everything, And I think Venus in Virgo, therefore, is a very admirable placement to have. It's just difficult for the native. They feel like they have to constantly work on themselves and improve themselves. Like they can't just accept the love. They have to work for it. Also, Virgo is a mercurial sign, so it's detached, it's kind of brainy. I think that can separate oneself from the pleasure sometimes, like kind of overthinking it, if that makes sense. So Virgo is in fall for Pisces. It is a very challenging placement. I am going to put it in the hardest category. So let me know what you think about this. This is a little bit subjective, but I did the best I could here. This chart is a little wonky. I would have evened it out if I could, but to be honest, there's not a lot of placements I would put in the easy category. They're all kind of either super easy or more neutral or worse. But yeah, that's kind of what I see for the hardest Venus sign. So let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you want to check out my channel, go ahead. If you want to reach me, you can check out my website at manic.mercurian.net, or you can email me at manic.mercurian@gmail.com. All of that information is in the description box below. But thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.